Well, this week it became official. Star Trek IV, the next movie in the Kelvin timeline, is officially done. It's over. The Kelvin universe is dead. You know, it's really not a surprise that the Kelvin universe is coming to an official end. I guess the only thing that's really surprising to me is how long it took for them to officially announce it. The last time we had a Star Trek movie in the theaters was Star Trek Beyond back in 2016. And at that time, they'd announced they were getting into pre-production for Star Trek IV, featuring the same cast, including the possibility of Chris Hemsworth returning in the role of George Kirk, the father to Chris Pine's James T. Kirk in the movies. As you know, nothing ever materialized. It was stuck in development hell for almost 9 years. No less than 4 directors were attached to it. Most well-known, of course, was Quentin Tarantino, which I must admit I would kind of be curious as to what his take on it would be. But there were 3 others attached throughout the year. S.J. Clarkson, known for multiple television shows as a director, but most recently known for directing Madam Web.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
Noah Hawley was briefly attached, and he, of course, was known for creating the TV show Legion and Fargo, both actually quite good shows. Once that fell apart, the directing duties popped over to a man named Matt Shakman, who got the nod because of his work on WandaVision, and of course, he's since gone on to direct Fantastic Four: First Steps. If you've ever watched any videos on my channel about Star Trek, you pretty much know that I am not a fan of the new Star Trek stuff. But that wasn't always so. I was actually looking forward to Star Trek 2009 when it was announced. Because you see, Star Trek Enterprise had ended on a rather dour note. It was coming to an end much shorter than most people expected, only 4 years on television. The series has started to have a turnaround of quality of episodes, and then it ended on a show which was just basically a holodeck adventure with William Riker on the Enterprise, looking back on the NX-01's final mission. Of course, they also killed off Trip, which really left a bad taste in my mouth. I actually liked that character. So when I heard, they were rebooting Star Trek on big screen, and I heard JJ Abrams was attached, I then was excited. Why? Because I did not know JJ Abrams then like I know now. I knew him as a creator of Alias, Lost, and Fringe, shows that I generally liked overall for the most part. So I thought this guy could bring something interesting. And then we got to see the cast. It was actually a well cast. You had Chris Pine as Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Zoe Saldana as Uhura, Carl Urban, who did an amazing turn as Bones McCoy, literally channeling DeForest Kelley. Simon Pegg, always liked him, appearing as Scotty. Anton Yelkin appearing as Chekhov, and John Cho appearing as Sulu. So this was a good-looking cast, good actors. I was excited about it. And then of course, you hear that it's actually not going to damage the original timeline because they split off into a new timeline.
An alternate reality.
Precisely. Whatever our lives might have been if the time continuum was disrupted, our destinies have changed.
This was actually probably the smartest thing they did because it would not offend old Trek fans like myself, who have very much an allegiance to the canon being told, to the history of Star Trek that had been developed over that 40-year time period. And also it allowed them to tell stories which they weren't constrained by that canon, so they could go off in different areas. Ultimately, the problem was that it just wasn't Star Trek.
This isn't Star Trek!
You have to acknowledge that Star Trek has never had the appeal that a science fiction or science fantasy franchise like Star Wars had. Star Wars appealed to the masses. Star Trek, in my opinion, as a fan, is very much niche. It's never really action-oriented. It always, to me, was much more philosophical, much more thought-provoking than Star Wars was. So it would be understandable that it wouldn't necessarily appeal to general audiences unless they really got into it from the beginning. So when they wanted to make this movie, they literally were making a popcorn movie, which is fine if you want to make a popcorn movie. And if this was a generic popcorn movie, that'd be fine. Again, the problem is it became too actiony. It was almost like the Fast and the Furious in space.
Let's make some noise.
And like I said, while the casting was good, the characters were off. I honestly thought the only character that truly rang true was that of McCoy.
Damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a physicist.
Kirk, however, did not. Kirk came off as like some sort of version of Han Solo, which didn't make much sense. He only goes to Starfleet because Captain Pike bets him he couldn't do it, basically.
Father was captain of a starship for 12 minutes.
He saved 800 lives.
I dare you to do better.
Zachary Quinto actually did a pretty decent job of Spock, and as we probably all know, he spent a good time talking to Leonard Nimoy about the development of the character. I did think they made him a little too emotional. I did not necessarily like the fact that they paired him with Uhura in some sort of a romantic relationship. It just wasn't the character of Spock for me.
That's not Spock.
The other thing was that the storyline felt very rushed. Somehow we had to get all the original crew on the Starship Enterprise for this one movie, and it was extremely contrived. First off, let's start with the fact that when this movie begins, Jim Kirk is a cadet at Starfleet, taking the Kobayashi Maru.
Armed photons, prepare to fire on the Klingon warbirds.
Yes, sir.
When he gets on board the Enterprise, Pike suddenly promotes him to first officer.
Kirk, I'm promoting you to first officer.
What?
Captain?
And then after Spock loses his temper and almost tries to kill Kirk, he becomes captain.
Congratulations, Jim. Now we've got no captain and no goddamn first officer to replace him.
Yeah, we do.
Pike made him first officer.
So that means in the course of one movie, over a passage of literally maybe a day or so, he went from being a cadet to the captain of the flagship of the Federation.
This is crazy. This is just impossible.
You know, as a guy who likes the canon and likes the history of Star Trek, that just literally made no sense. There's no logic to it at all. It was just, let's get him on there so he becomes a captain in an exciting way. It didn't stay true to the nature of Star Trek, which, in my opinion, has always exemplified people striving and reaching their best through merit and work, as opposed to Kirk, who literally just lucked into the captaincy here.
Totally illogical.
Again, the rest of the series felt rushed as well. We go from this first movie to the second one, Into Darkness, where we awkwardly and, not so secretly introduce John Harrison as Khan.
My name is Khan.
Again, there's no backstory for this. He's literally just found in space earlier than he should have been found, not by the Enterprise, but by Admiral Marcus's Section 31 team, and he brings Khan and the rest of the augments to Earth.
Alexander Marcus needed to respond to an uncivilized threat in a civilized time, and for that, he needed a warrior's mind. My mind.
In another example of member berries and key jangling, we get introduced to Carol Marcus, in the original series, Kirk's a longtime love, mother of his son. In this case, she is the daughter of Admiral Marcus, and she comes on board the Enterprise and makes a, significant appearance.
There, but I will need some help. Turn around.
Let me be very clear. Alice Eve is a very attractive woman, and I got no problem with the way she looks at all. But, sorry guys, TNA has no place in Star Trek.
That is correct.
The third movie, Star Trek Beyond, continued, in my opinion, the calling back to what was before, member berries and key jangling. This time, Jim Kirk is feeling basically old. He's not. He's only in his mid-30s, but he's feeling like I'm sort of done with exploring. I'm tired of it. It's kind of worn me out. I find a similarity to this as, Jim Kirk and Wrath of Khan, where he's turning middle-aged, wondering where he is at his point in his life. Should he be riding the desk? Should he be out exploring the galaxy? What does he want to do? We are again presented with the same idea from a Star Trek movie as before. We are not getting original ideas. We're relying entirely on what people remember from the past to create these movies. And I think really that is the problem with the Kelvin-verse.
I see your point.
JJ and the other writers and producers were counting on the audience to remember what Star Trek was like. But in fact, what they're trying to do is bring in new audience members using, more excitement and action than you had seen in Star Trek. Did it bring in some new people? Probably did. How did it, treat the prior fans? for me, I don't think it really encouraged me to want more of this because it wasn't Star Trek to me. They just took the name Star Trek and wrapped it around whatever they concocted so they use the IP, the characters and everything, and try to make money off it. It didn't have the heart or soul of Star Trek. Star Trek, in my opinion, has always been best as a television series. The strength of the original movies was because you liked the original characters and they were played by the same actors. So you had that connection. Even Next Generation had built up 7 years of allegiance to the actors and to the characters. And that's what made those movies somewhat of a success. Later on, of course, they weren't. There was that connection, though, to the original actors, to the next gen actors. And we wanted to see them explore more on the big screen. Ultimately, though, it was never meant to be Star Wars. It was never going to be big flash bang, because that's not Star Trek. Star Trek has always been a little more intellectual, a little more thought-provoking. And popcorn movie, Star Trek is not. So in the end, yeah, we have unsurprisingly seen the end of the Kelvin-verse. Am I celebrating? No. Why? Because we still have Kurtzman Trek. That's right. Starfleet Academy will be coming out in a couple months. Can't wait for that. And supposedly Kurtzman's contract ends in 2026. And with the new CEO, David Ellison of Skydance Paramount now, saying he wants to see Star Trek go in a different direction, maybe we will have something to celebrate at some point. But we still have 2 seasons of Starfleet Academy and 2 more seasons of Strange New Worlds, all under the Kurtzman Trek banner. So unsurprising that Kelvin universe has come to an end, but no changes in Star Trek. Fortunately, we do have 40 years of good Star Trek to go watch. Go back and watch the original series, Next Generation, or like we're doing, watch Deep Space Nine. We're watching it every week on my channel on our show Wormhole Watch. You can even go watch Voyager and Enterprise. Most importantly, as I always say, there's good Star Trek out there. Go watch it. Questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click all the good buttons. See you guys next time.